G'day guys and welcome back to this week's fishing report. Let's get straight into what's been biting around Sydney. Well, what a week we've had out of Sydney, both in the rivers and out offshore. There's been a lot of fish being caught. Let's get straight into it. So firstly, let's head out offshore. Kingfish and snapper have been the two fish that have been caught, using live baits for kingfish and dropping them around shallow reefs. So Jim and Bommy, Mary's Reef, and even further south of the Port Hacking along the cliffs there have been producing some really nice kingfish. Kingfish in excess of 80 centimetres, with even a couple over that magical metre mark being caught. Going out to middle grounds and all of our live bait areas and catching a few yellowtail and slimy mackerel, and even if you can get a couple of squid, then heading down to your spots, slow trolling those live baits around, have been producing some really nice kingfish. Speaking of the kingfish, going back into our rivers, if we're going to fish for our kingfish in the rivers, over the last weekend, the top of the run-in tide was around midday, which is a bit strange. But there was a small kingfish bite window there right at the top of the tide in the last 2 hours of that run-in tide where the kingfish just seemed to be on and been biting a lot of different live baits and plastics. Where they have been in the Port Hacking have been around Burrania Bay and the main bar sand flats there. Particularly, again, any Botany Bay, they've been around Watts Reef, La Perouse, and the runways, again on the same tide, right in the top end of that run-in tide. Moving on to the snapper. The snapper, again, have been on the bite the last couple of weeks. I haven't been really reporting on them because they have been a bit quiet. I know the last couple of weeks I've been saying that the water temperature dropped down below that magical 16-degree mark for our snapper, and when it dips down to that, they can be quite tough to find. As the water has slowly started to warm up into spring and summer, the snapper have gone back on the chew, and I predict them to be on the chew in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Then they'll again head out deep and hang out deep for the rest of the summer, waiting to come back in shallow around May next year. So if we're going to target snapper, particularly in shallow areas on soft plastics, I'd be targeting them over the next couple of weeks and then sort of moving tack and maybe moving towards kingfish and stuff like that. Because personally, I just find them to be a bit harder in the summer to catch, and there's other fish species that I would like to target in the summer that might not be available during the winter when the snapper are more proliferant. So for the snapper, Jim and Bommy, Mary's Reef, and some cliffs on the south part of Port Hacking have been producing some really nice fish. Fish inside 30 metres on 1/4 ounce, 5-inch style jerkbait soft plastics. Moving into the river, our brim and flathead have been producing some really nice catches over the last couple of weeks. Particularly our brim, we've seen some nice kilo-plus brim being caught underneath our boat holes and wharfs. Strong tides have been the key. The brim have been hiding behind the back eddies of those boat holes and those wharfs, hiding in structure, but also waiting for bait fish to fall off those areas and coming along and ambush feeding them. Flathead, again, run-out tides. The bottom 3 hours of that run-out tide has been producing some really nice flathead. Finding a nice drop-off and fishing those edges have been producing some nice flathead. But along with that, the top of the tide, as it turned and to become into that run-out tide, the start of the run-out tide, has been producing some really nice flathead on the flats, using hard-body bent minnow style soft plastics in less than 2 metres of water, in gin clear water, has been producing some really big flathead. Fish in excess of 80 centimetres have been caught. Moving further upstream and into our brackish waters and our fresh water, the bass again have been really, really good. Fish being caught on hard body lures, soft plastics, not really much on surface yet. Again, during the week I might have heard a few cicadas here and there. That's normally the sign that they're going to be eating on surface, is when the cicadas come out and you start hearing the cicadas chirping away. That's when you just want to start targeting them on surface. But during the week, a couple of occasions there, I did hear a few cicadas starting to chirp. But what you really want is a nice 3 or 4 days of some nice hot weather to really get those cicadas moving. Then the bass will clue on and start feeding on the surface with them. So surface feeding for the bass is probably another month away, maybe a couple of weeks, depending on how hot the weather might be over the next couple of weeks. But they've still been producing really well. Snaggy areas, shady, snaggy areas, hard bodies, and lightly weighted soft plastics, and fish in excess of 40 centimetres. Absolute tanks of Australian bass. So that's going to do it for the fishing report. There's been a lot of fish being caught. Let's get into where you're going to be heading for this weekend. Okay, so this weekend, the thing I'm going to firstly warn you guys about is the wind is predicted to be quite high. We've got an east nor'easter on Saturday. and a north-northwest wind on Sunday, predicted in excess of 30 kilometers an hour. Now, for me, going out offshore, that's going to be a no-go. Heading out offshore in a wind that's more than 25 k's an hour, for me, it's just not safe. Nor is it comfortable for me to be able to actually have a fish. So, in saying that, please make sure if you are going out this weekend that you check the weather forecast. The wind is predicted to be high the majority of the weekend. The only really nice weather window that I can see from the weather apps that I have is Sunday afternoon and Saturday morning, but they're only very small windows. So whether those windows are actually going to be like that are two different stories. So for the where to fish this weekend, I'm going to take the wind completely out of it. Okay, mainly because if it does change and it does settle down quite well, you're going to be focusing on the tide changes anyway over the weekend. So, if the wind is down, this is my plan. Saturday morning, we've got a high tide at about 6:30 and a sunrise at about 5:45. So we've got a nice little bite window there of about an hour and a half where the kingfish could be on right around sunrise. Now, for me, if you're really prepared, head out even earlier. Go and get a few live baits if you can. If that's not going to be if you don't think you can get some live baits really, really quickly, say in 20 minutes and then head out and have a fish, if it's going to take you an hour, 45 minutes to be able to find some live baits and go for a fish, I wouldn't do it. I would target them particularly on soft plastics. Nice, long, sluggo style soft plastics are going to be the key for them. That's what I would do if I was targeting kingfish on both Saturday and Sunday, because the tide change will only slightly move a little bit. On Sunday, you probably have a better chance of being able to get a live bait and then go and fish the back end of that run-in tide. But either way, I would target them on soft plastics. It's just going to be a lot easier in the long run, and you're going to have more time fishing for them rather than grabbing live baits and then going to your spot. Just more time fishing and targeting them is going to be the key for that. Now, once that tide turns and becomes a run-out tide, these are the two things I'm going to be doing. The top of the run-out tide, so say in the first 3 hours of that run-out tide, I'm going to head out on the shallow sand flats. Main bar, southwest arm, northwest arm, the flats along there. I'm going to be using a bent minnow style hard body, casting along the flats on that run-out tide, targeting some really extra large flathead. Okay, the bent minnow that I'm going to be using is 130 millimeters, so 13 centimeter size bent minnow. And it sounds a bit crazy, but the big flathead and even 45, 50 centimeter flathead will engulf a fish of that size, particularly on the run out tide on those flats. They are hungry. They're looking for those last feeds on that flats before they have to head off that flat and onto an edge and ambush feed even more. So while they're up on those flats, they're hunting around. They're not looking for a rest. They're looking for a feed. So those extra large hard body bent minnows are going to be perfect. If a bent minnow is not really your thing, a 5-inch style soft plastic on a bare hook with no weight will also produce some nice fish as well. Okay, the bare hook and no weight, you'll be surprised how far you can actually cast it, particularly the Daiwa jerk shads, the 5-inch Daiwa jerk shads. They actually cast a mile without any weight on them, so you can also use that as well. As the back end of that run out tide starts, so about 9:30, 10 o'clock, what I will do is obviously head over to an edge, head off that flat, make sure you get off the flat before it gets too low and your boat might get stranded, and then find that edge. So find where the deeper part is. As soon as you head off that flat, there'll be an edge that drops off into deeper water where your boat will be able to sit. Fish that area. The flathead that you've been targeting on that flat will also be on those edges waiting to go back up again. But they're also ambush feeding on that edge, waiting for the last bits of bait that could maybe sit in 10 centimeters of water and be comfy for that last bit of water to go and that flat to be completely dry of water. The flat are going to be sitting there waiting for that, waiting for them. Little soft plastics, 5 inches or less, jerkbaity style, or even like some prawn style ones will work quite well in those last couple of hours. Again, another good bite window, very dependent on the wind again, is the afternoon. We've got a tide change right around sunset. It's a nice high tide change. So we've got a run-in tide all afternoon. And I'm going to be targeting, if I was going out in the afternoon, I'm going to be targeting some salmon and kingfish. Now, the salmon in the Port Hacking have been extra large. Fish in excess of 60 centimeters, biting pretty much any surface lure that you could throw at them. And they've been feeding really, really well. Off main bar, if you've got a drone, that's the easiest way to find the school. Send the drone up, have a look around. You'll find the school quite easily and then fish for them that way. If you don't have a drone, I'd be just slowly trolling around, keeping my eyes peeled, seeing if I can see them in the water, or if I'm trolling a hard body, waiting for them to hook up and trolling around and sort of searching in that way. Has been producing some nice salmon. So the afternoon, I'm going to be targeting the salmon, and then in the last hour, I'm going to switch tack and target some kingfish. Again, the last end of that run-in tide, the kingfish have been biting really well, and we have a sunset. That should be able to increase our kingfish chances of getting one. So again, targeting it around the runways in Botany Bay, Yarra Bay, Watts Reef, and then in the port hacking around Main Bar, and the drop-offs around Main Bar there, Burraneer Bay, and then around Lillypilly as well. That's where they're going to be. Using your sounder for kingfish is the key, especially if you're slow trolling live baits, making sure you know what they look like on your sounder and making sure that you either slow down your slow troll, send the baits further down, and just be patient. And you never know, you could be hooked up to a really nice kingfish. Early in the season, there will be a lot more legal size kingfish. As the summer goes on, traditionally over the last couple of years, the rats start to take over, and it can be hard to get your live bait or even soft plastics or whatever presentation you have past the rats and onto the bigger kingfish that are hanging around. They're there, you just got to work through them. So even if you get a few rats, just know that they school up, there'll be bigger fish around them. You either need to throw a bigger soft plastic at them or a bigger bait to entice them in. So that's going to do it for this week's fishing report. I hope you all go out and have a fish. Hope you all target some nice fish and actually be successful over the weekend. Again, let me stress, the wind is predicted to be up. So if it's going to be up and your boat can handle it, or you can handle it from that land-based spot that you might fish, more than happy to go for it. Me personally, as soon as it gets above 25 k's an hour, it's just too hard for me to go out for a fish, and it's not worth it. I've got plenty of jobs to do here on the boat, whether it be servicing engines, fixing bearings, rollers, all sorts of stuff that I will need to do anyway. So I'd be spending my time doing that to make sure that the boat is in tip-top shape for when the weather turns really good. Again, if you want to go out, go for it. Don't forget, last bit, 7 Seas Apparel. Don't forget to go to 7 Seas Apparel and use code REALFISHING10. That's REEL Fishing 10 to save yourself 10% off anything real fishing. They've got some nice t-shirts, fishing jerseys that are SPF 50 plus to protect you in the sun heading into spring and summer as well. Don't forget, use code REALFISHING10 to save yourself 10% off at checkout. And as always, leave a comment down below. Let me know how you're going to go this weekend, what you're going to target, and how you went. Don't forget to subscribe as well. Leave a thumbs up. Turn that notifications bell on as well so you get to know when my next video is live straight away and you're not just watching it days and days later. So, we'll see you in the next one. Peace out.